COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible. The only jobs he created were for illegal immigrants and bounce back jobs, that bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you, President Biden.
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he's the greatest economy in the world. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that we found ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant in the military, you know, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we still found ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were a safe country. Truth is, I'm the only president this century that doesn't have this decade, that had any troops down anywhere in the world like he did.
President Trump, I want to follow up if I can. You want
to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a follow-up. You can do whatever you want with the minute that we give you. I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
Not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cause countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China. It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest rate in history. That's why we had all the jobs. And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back jobs. You can't do that. He also said he inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed that way for 14 months. And then it blew up under his leadership because they spent money like a bunch of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump.
Uh-oh.
New debt. Well, so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that you signed into law are set to expire next year. You want to extend them and go even further, you say. With the U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt, why should top earners and corporations pay even less in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country. But we spurred that tax spurred. Now,
is anybody else seeing all
as an example,
the glitching?
The corporate tax was cut down to 21%
on the video feed, on the TV.
That. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies were bringing back trillions of dollars back into our country. The country was going like never before, and we were ready to start paying down debt. We were ready to start using the liquid gold right under our feet, the oil and gas right under our feet. We were going to have something that nobody else has had. We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it. More people died under his administration than our administration, and we were right in the middle of it, something which a lot of people don't like to talk about. But he had far more people dying in his administration. He did the mandate, which is a disaster, mandating it. When the vaccine went out, he did a mandate on the vaccine, which is the thing that people most objected to about the vaccine.
Wow, Joe
and he
Biden's
did a very
got
poor job,
one
just a
eyebrow
very
up.
poor job. And I will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world leadership between what.
And here we go. It's like a weird, glitchy screen. What happened to the audio?
all of the things he's done, we've become
Oh,
like
man.
a third world nation.
This
And
is
it's a
terrible.
The
You know,
damage he's done to
I
our
saw that they're
country.
doing a 1 to
And I'd
2
love
minute
to ask
delay,
him, and will, why he allowed
which gives them
millions of people
opportunity
come
to
in
like
here from
cut out all the
prisons,
stuff they don't
jails, and
like.
mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President Biden, I
Oh,
want to
wow,
give you an
his
opportunity to respond to this
expressions.
question about the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, he got $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example, we have 1,000 billionaires in America. Billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, and they've raised
Well,
$500
I lied.
million
I have USA Today, I think, that I pulled up.
in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe
I
out
just
debt,
clicked on the
we'd be able
first
to
one when it came
make
to the
sure that
live.
all those things we need to do, childcare, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with COVID. Excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with look.
Oh, here we go. He just lost it.
We finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Wow. That didn't take long.
Destroying Medicare because all of
We're
those
only,
people are
what,
coming in,
13 minutes in, guys?
They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy Social Security. These millions and millions of people coming in, they're trying to put them on Social Security. He will wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a shame. What's happened to our country in the last 4 years is
Yeah,
not
but
to be
U-Haul,
believed.
that one was like
Foreign
really
countries
bad. Like you could
I'm
see the
friends with
light
a lot of
bulb go
people.
off.
They cannot believe what
He's
happened to
mumbled
the
a lot
United
too.
States of
He's
America.
really hard
They
to
no longer
understand
respect
tonight.
it. They don't like us.
I almost wish they had
think we do
subtitles
what
for
they
him.
want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're
Although
very
those
stupid
would probably
people.
be even
What
worse.
we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump. Dana?
This is the first presidential election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade.
These cut
This
mics are
morning,
interesting.
the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However, the federal government still plays a role in whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, a complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade and moving it back to the states. This is something that everybody wanted. 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many, every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected.
There's the eyebrow again.
Back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was, an end result. It was a little
no worries, Grow Better. Can you guys hear the audio?
Kansas, I would say the same thing. Texas,
Where should I turn it up?
Florida is different, but they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the
By the way,
life of the mother.
applesauce with strawberries and cinnamon.
But
totally awesome
snack.
snack.
And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem they have is they're radical because they will take the life of a child in the 8th month, the 9th month, and even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he was willing to do this. He said, we'll put the baby aside and we'll determine what we do with the baby, meaning we'll kill the baby. What happened is we brought it back to the states, and the country is now coming together on this issue. It's been a great thing.
Thank you. President Biden?
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it. It's just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states, that each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in there. We talk about that. Here's the deal: there's a lot of young women to be raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters. It's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border. We have a border that's the most dangerous place
He
anywhere in
opened
the
that
world.
door.
Considered the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. And in many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which frankly they didn't. But they would have done. Everybody wanted brought back. Ronald Reagan wanted it brought back. He wasn't able to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is a same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy a woman can obtain an abortion. Do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. First time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians, that the founders want the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician makes that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what.
But why didn't that work that way with the
Roe v. Wade
mandates?
So that means you can take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take it after birth. Again, the former governor of Virginia, put the baby down, then we decide what to do with it. So he's willing to, as we say, rip the baby out of the womb in the 9th month and kill the baby. Nobody wants that to happen, Democrat or Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
That is simply not true. The Roe v. Wade does not provide for that. That's not the circumstance. Only a woman's life is in danger. She's going to die. That's the only circumstance where that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state. You can do whatever you want. We don't think that's a good thing. We think it's a radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put
So this is the hill they want to die on?
Takes credit for taking it away. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? In fact,
Let's get heated on this one. There's so many other issues going on right now.
And the MAGA Republicans control the Congress, and they pass a universal ban on abortion, period, across the board.
You know, we want to talk about this stuff, but we don't want to talk about how we almost signed our sovereignty over to an unelected
Thank you.
3-letter non-governmental organization.
A record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border states and overburdening cities such as New York and Chicago, and in some cases causing real safety and security concerns. Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
Because we worked very hard to get a bipartisan agreement that not only changed all of that, made sure that we are in a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of people border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers, significantly. By the way, the Border Patrol endorsed my position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation where when he was president, he was separating babies from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure the families are separated. That's not the right way to go. What I've done since I've changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that now you're in a situation where there's 40% fewer people coming across the border legally, especially when he left office. And I'm going to continue to move until we get to total ban on the total initiative relative to what we're going to do with more border patrol and more asylum.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of this, and I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we have the safest border in the history of our country. All we had to do was leave it. All we had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our
Sorry. Couldn't help myself.
that are from prisons.
Hi,
People
pierogi.
that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now. All terrorists, all over the world, not just in South
I just
America,
figured
all
I'd
over the
watch
world.
it with you guys,
From the
whoever
Middle East,
wanted to watch
everywhere.
with me.
All over the world, they're pouring in. And this guy just left it open. And he didn't need legislation because I didn't have legislation. I said, close the border. We had the safest border in history. In that final couple of months of my presidency, we had, according to Border Patrol, who was great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me for president. Brandon, just stick to him. But look, we had the safest border in history. Now we have the worst border in history. There's never been anything like it. And people are dying all over the place, including the people that are coming up in
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything across the border is one who came along and killed three in his administration, killed Al Qaeda person in his administration, killed three American soldiers.
Excuse me?
Three American soldiers. That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no terrorists ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these people. It's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating, he's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're going to carry out, quote, the largest domestic deportation operation.
I'm glad I brought a lot of Slim Jims.
Does that mean that you will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses are citizens, and including those who have lived here for decades? And if so, how will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed three people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and
Right?
Soleimani, the two greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world. And it had a huge impact on everything, not just border, on everything. He's the one that killed people with a bad border, including hundreds of thousands of people dying and also killing our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California, in every state in the union, because we don't have borders anymore. Every state is now a border. And because of his ridiculous, insane, and very stupid policies, people are coming in and they're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen.
Wow, that was a hard swallow from Biden, though. Did you see that?
Incredible young girls over the last few days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and he just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our country, we're literally an uncivilized country now. He doesn't want it to be. He just doesn't know. He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast because they're going to destroy our country. Just take a look at where they're living. They're living in luxury hotels in New York City and other places. Our veterans are on the street. They're dying because he doesn't care about our veterans. He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all. And he doesn't care about our veterans.
Trump is making a point about the vets on the streets.
Approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Joyce, that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less than half because he's done all these great things that we did. And I think he did it just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by allowing all of these people to come in. And it's a very sad day in America.
President Biden, you have the mic.
Every single thing he said is a lie. every single one.
Oh,
Veterans
every
have
single one.
That's the fact. 1 million of them now have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And he opposed, the group opposed that. We're also in a situation where we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq. Later, when next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in
did anybody else understand that last part?
and I spoke to all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War II cemetery, World War I cemetery, he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star generals, and he told me, "I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers."
I feel like my
son was not a
hearing's
loser,
going
he's
when
not a
I'm
sucker.
listening to
You're
him.
a sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump?
Oh, you're the
First of all, that
sucker.
was
You're
a
the
made-up
loser.
quote, Suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines. He made that up.
He doesn't
We put it in
inspire
commercials. We
anything
notified
in
him. We had 19 people.
other than
that
raised
said,
eyebrows.
and think of this. Who would say, I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taking better care. I'm so glad this came up and he brought it up. There's nobody that's taken better care of our soldiers than I have. To think that I would, in front of generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made up, just like the 51 intelligence agents are made up, just like the new thing with the 16 economists.
The blank
It's the same thing. 51 intelligence
stare
agents said that the laptop was
kills
Russia
me.
disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter. It wasn't Russia disinformation. He made up the suckers and losers, so he should apologize to me right now. 4-star general standing at your side was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. And they now are their families. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right, thank you so much.
Topic of foreign policy. I want to begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its 3rd year. Former President Trump.
This is really
Russian
tough just
President
to follow
Vladimir Putin
because
says he'll
he
only
does
end
mumble a
this
lot.
war if Russia keeps the Ukrainian territory it has already claimed and Ukraine abandons its bid to join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers can't stand this guy. They can't stand him. They think he's the worst commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they like me more than just about any of them. And that's based on every single bit of information.
Oh, there's that weird jokery smile
If
again.
we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those
I
numbers.
don't understand how
he did nothing to stop it. In fact,
Biden has a smirk on his face.
I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible, embarrassing, most embarrassing
when you
moment
talk
in the history of our
about
country.
these atrocities, you know, Trump's talking about these atrocities, and Biden was standing there with a smirk on his face. I just don't understand.
He's got no love lost, but he should have fired those generals. No general got fired for the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers and 38.
This feels like one of those roasts. You guys remember watching those?
We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take this was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded in a million years by Hamas. You know why? Because
hey, Bobby,
with me, I wouldn't let anyone.
Oh, you're passing out your popcorn. Hey, listen. I got mine.
That's why you had no terror at all during my administration.
I also have coffee if the mumbling gets too much. I have 2 of these.
Never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. But the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first. Iran attacked American troops kill or cause brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did nothing about it. Recently, not when he was president. Here they attack. He said they're just having headaches. That's all it is.
Oh, right. So you take care of everybody so good, like the people of East Palestine, right, Joe? Right?
100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that era. Number
You know,
three.
So concerned about your people, but what'd you do for them?
Trump did in Ukraine.
Huh, Joe? What'd you do for them?
Told Ukraine, told Trump, do whatever you want. Do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want. And he went in. Listen to what he said when he went in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish. Kyiv. And he, in fact, didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops. 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I never said that.
All
right, we're breaking out the popcorn.
My original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the territory in Ukraine.
No, they're not acceptable.
I'm about to go
This is
off
a
the
war that
rails
never should have
myself.
started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying the money that we're spending on this war,
Right?
and we shouldn't be spending, it should have never happened.
We should have cities that look like Dubai. With the amount of money that's sent overseas for other people's wars, we could take that and invest in our own infrastructure and have the most gorgeous country out there.
So stupidly. And I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
I don't want to do that though.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made 1% clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? You think he'll
Get out your popcorn, guys.
What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think?
Yeah, I know, Frank. 16 states. They also talk about the Canada border.
He does what he says and walks away. By the way, all that money we give Ukraine, weapons we make,
And that's still incomplete data.
Not the money at this point. And our NATO allies produce as much.
I'm leaving that there. I like that.
That's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In October, Hamas attacked Israel, killing more than 1,000 people and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians.
So, Bobby, they were given a notepad and a pen at the beginning of the debate. They're not allowed any note cards. They weren't allowed any of that stuff, but they were allowed a notepad for during this so they could write down notes as they go. I did read that in a news article.
Will you use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war?
Number one. Everyone from the
No, Josh, I actually had a salad earlier, healthier stuff before the snacky snacks.
Endorsed the plan that we're forward. Endorse the plan that we're forward.
So I did have real dinner.
First thing is treat the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas. Number one. They're the only ones standing up. We're still pushing hard to get them to accept. In the meantime, what's happened in Israel? We're finding the only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel all the weapons they need and when they need.
I'm surprised Rio's not in here for popcorn because he loves popcorn. But he might be sleeping.
They're kind of ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally.
He had a busy day. We got the truck inspected today.
We saved Israel. We are the biggest producer of support for
Bobby, you do bring up a very good point.
And so there are two different things. Hamas cannot allow to continue. We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people.
Hey, Tammy.
Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated. But you've got to be careful for what using certain weapons among population centers.
Let's go back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent 100 billion, or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of NATO said Trump did the most incredible job I've ever seen. They wouldn't have any, they were going out of business. We were spending almost 100% of the money was paid by us. He didn't do that. He's getting all, you got to ask these people to put up the money. We're over $100 billion more spent, and it has a bigger impact on them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and Hamas, Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. Just a guy who wants to get out of NATO. Are you going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO. The idea that we have our strength lies in our alliances as well. There may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe. What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement. Attack on one is attack on all. If you want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace. No major war in Europe has ever been able to contain just in Europe.
President Trump, just to follow up,
Now that's
would you support the
Kinda
creation
true.
of an independent Palestinian state
Hey,
in order to
bygone.
achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see. But
nice
before
to
we
see
do
in the
that,
comments.
the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I make great trade deals with the European nations. Because if you add them up, they're about the same size economically. Their economy is about the same size as the United States. And they were no cars, they don't want anything that we have. But we're supposed to take their cars, their
Crazy.
food, their everything, their agriculture. I changed that. But the big thing I changed is they don't want
Rio,
and the only reason that he can play games with NATO
I'm
is
gonna go
because I
check
got
on the
them to put
puppy.
up hundreds of billions of dollars.
I'm
I
gonna turn
said,
this up though, because
and
I gotta
he's
go
right
in the
about
next
this.
room.
I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question. Would you guard us against Russia? At a very secret meeting of the 28
What you doing, baby?
states at that time, nations at that time. And they said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months.
Come here, sleepyhead.
Now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Oh, look at
Former President Trump.
I have
want to ask you about
popcorn.
January 6,
Oh,
2021.
your
After
favorite.
you rallied your supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol to stop
Yeah.
the constitutionally mandated counting of electoral votes. As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever. We had the lowest regulations ever. On January 6th, we were respected all over the world. All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. That what happened to the United States' reputation under this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6, 2021, and worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, as they say, But she's saying, oh no, it's my responsibility. I was responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor in writing, by the way, the mayor in writing turned it down, the mayor of DC. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
Look, he encouraged those folks to go to the Capitol, number one. I sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, he's talked to
I'm sorry, Bygone.
patriots and great patrons of America. In fact, he says he'll not forgive them for what they've done. No, they've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. He went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court, and they said, no, this guy is responsible for doing what was done. He didn't do a damn thing, and these people should be in jail, and they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out, and now he says that he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that there could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
What they've done to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself.
I'm sorry,
what
guys,
you have
this
done,
part
you've
here.
destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with the fires all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard that, they saw them coming, and they left immediately. What he said
Chaz,
about
do you guys remember
this
that,
whole
or CHOP, or
subject
whatever
is
they were
so
calling
wrong.
it?
Peacefully patriotic. One other thing, the unselect committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone now out of office, and Democrats, all Democrats, they destroyed and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a minute.
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon, is the man I'm looking at right now. And the fact of the matter is, what he's telling you is simply not true. Fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on.
Buffer.
And all those people, every one of those that are convicted, was turned over desks, turned them over statues. The idea that those people are patriots, come on. When I asked him those first two debates we had, that first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing to, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that Capitol? What are you going to do?
Attack the
I'm
Capitol.
going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury convicted you of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political
Yeah, this
opponents. You
J6
just
stuff
talked about
is
members of the select committee and January
interesting.
6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be convicted probably numerous other times. Should have been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a convicted felon with all of the things that he's done. He's done horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian people that we're going to want $1 billion, you can change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That we're not going to do anything. We're not going to give you $1 billion unless you change your prosecutor having to do with the son. This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong. We'd have a system that was rigged and disgusting. I did nothing wrong.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, I'm coming right to you, sir. You want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea that I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken like that before. Number three, the crimes that you are still charged with. And think of all the civil penalties yet. How many billions of dollars do you owe with civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, or doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star?
Oh boy.
While your wife was pregnant. I mean, what are you talking about?
But we're not going to talk about Joe was your kid's babysitter.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one. Number two, that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official at DOJ
We need more popcorn.
DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed and won. We had a very terrible judge,
Definitely.
a horrible judge, Democrat. The prosecutor were all high-ranking Democrats, appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they
What are you
found
guys
out
thinking
about these
right
cases,
now?
you know what they did? My call numbers went up way up. You know that because you're
I'd love to
recording it.
hear some other
And we
thoughts
took in
here.
more money in the last 2 weeks than we've ever taken in the history of any campaign. I don't think any campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam, and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are
Can we
likely to vote
just
for President
talk about
Trump
the fact
will
that
be
we're a
voting
constitutional
against American
republic and not a
The
democracy?
more they know about what he's done, yes. The more they know about what he's done. And there's a lot more coming. He's got a lot of cases down the road coming around. He's got a whole range of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has real problems. And so the fact that, did you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? You ever hear any president say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq. I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bio they sang when they were back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said,
Ugh.
"What do you think of those people? The people who
When he tells stories,
stop it, and the ones
I don't
that
know
think
what to
it's
believe.
fine, people on both sides. What
Because,
American president would ever say? Nazis
apparently he
coming out
says
of
whatever
fields
comes to
carrying
mind, like
torches,
his uncle
singing
eaten by
the
cannibals
same
and,
anti-Semitic bio, carrying swastikas.
Corn Pop's a bad dude.
This is a guy that says Hitler's done some good
And-
things. I'd like to know what they are. Good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of
So it just makes you wonder.
President Trump.
Yeah, both of you know that story's been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration.
No, that's my
So he
problem,
just keeps it
is that
going.
he just don't know what to
Because of
believe coming out of his
Charlottesville.
mouth, because
he ran because it was his last chance.
it's mostly incoherent,
He's
and
not
then there's a
good
lot of
president. You know
untruths.
it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify.
And if you're
his
gonna lie about like
His
stupid
presidency
things in your
is-
life,
without question,
then
the worst president.
let's
the
just say you're
worst
not gonna lie
presidency
about the
in
big
history
stuff.
of our country.
I mean, just
We
me.
shouldn't be having a debate about it. There's nothing to debate. He made up the Charlottesville story, and you'll see it's debunked all over the place. Every reasonable anchor has debunked it. And just the other day, it came out.
Anybody
where it was
else
fully
watching the
debunked.
facial expressions as this goes on?
Nonsense story. He knows that, and he didn't run because of Charlottesville. He used that as an excuse to run.
President Biden.
and debunk. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time. And the idea that somehow that's the only reason I ran. I ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those woods, carrying those torches, then he didn't deserve to be president. Didn't deserve to be president at all. And the idea that he's talking about all this being fabricated, we saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden. We're going to be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
Wow. Just wow. So I guess we're on a commercial break, so that's kind of cool. But wow, that's a lot of ground in the first half there. And I'm you know, I am gonna say I'm impressed that Biden still looks very alert. Yes, he's been a little bit mumbly and a little incoherent and lost his train of thought a couple of times, but it's not as bad as what I expected. So I guess whatever training he was doing this week and getting ready for this thing, I don't know, I guess maybe it worked. It's still a bit tough to think that this guy, you know, like I said, I don't know what to believe when he talks because he tells these like crazy stories. And, you know, you see these moments where he completely loses that train of thought. And it just makes me wonder, you know, like, would he even be able to handle another 4 years? And then, you know, there's a part of me that just feels really bad for him because the truth of the matter is that he's okay. Let's face it, guys. I mean, he's not always all together there. And Jill, like, I mean, you would think as his wife, like, if you cared about your husband, would you really let him run around and, you know, do this to himself? I don't know. I guess that's my question. You know, it just, I have a lot more questions than I have answers. That's for sure. And the truth is that, you know, I'm glad to see there's not as much name calling as there was in like the past. There has been some. And I think that when they do that, that's just so childish. I don't, you know, I'm not really thrilled about that. Like I said, you know, there are so many different topics to cover right now. I feel like, I don't know. I just feel like their choice of topics to cover is interesting tonight. Hi, guys. Yeah, this is, I mean, and I don't know about anybody else. I mean, this is a little rough for me to watch. It really is. You know, I try to go at least into listening to it with an open mind. But I don't know. I don't know when he sits there and it's like, oh, he's a convicted felon. Well, okay, yeah, but look at your kid and then, you know, let's look at that laptop and the diary, you know, just saying. I wonder if we're going to get, oh, there's the sound. We're coming back.
You both faced in your first terms, and you'd certainly face again in the second term. President Biden, while Black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, Black families.
And thank you guys for sitting here watching TV with me.
Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes. And Black Americans are imprisoned at 5
Hope y'all have your popcorn.
of white Americans. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
Acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. Facts of the matter is more small Black businesses that have been started at any time in history. Number two, the wages of Black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're trying to provide housing for Black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses. In addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that Black families have to make relative to childcare is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation that passed, I was able to reduce Black childcare costs, cut them in half. We got to make sure we provide for childcare costs. Got to make sure, because when you provide those childcare protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to Black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly. For example, I provided for the idea that any Black family, first-time home buyer, should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those Black families and those Black individuals provided, as you said, got student loans that were ballooning, and if they were engaged in nursing, anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years and to student debt, all the rest is forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for Black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
And he caused the inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right, it's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing Black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing
Grow
people.
better.
They can't
You
buy
crack me up.
groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled, and tripled, and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation. I gave him
We did have politicians telling us to eat
essentially
cereal
no
for dinner.
inflation. It was perfect. It was so good. All he had to do is leave it alone. He destroyed it with his Green New Scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window. He caused inflation. As sure as you're sitting there, the fact is that his big kill on the Black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking Black jobs now, and it could be 18, it could be 19, and even 20 million people. They're taking Black jobs, and they're taking Hispanic jobs, and you haven't seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President Biden?
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 50% unemployment. He decimated the economy. Absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in involved communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered with the ACA.
Love that he thinks
I made sure that there's $8,000 per
jobs.
person in a family to get written off in healthcare. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They've tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again, and they're going to try again if they win. We find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing it, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity and making sure people have a shot to make it. There's a lot going on.
Did he just say that
inflation
Trump's really defunding the police?
Tremendous.
I thought that was
seasons in the way he handles the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year in recorded history, and communities across the country are confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea
here we go,
levels.
the climate.
Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Let me just go back to what he said about the police. How close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump. Almost every police group. And what he's done to the black population is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them
I
super
wonder if
predators.
either
He
one of
can't
them's
do
gonna
nothing nice. We
stop
can't forget that.
the
Super
plan of the
predators
federal
is his name.
government
And he called
to
it
buy
that,
30%
they're
more of
taking
the
great
land.
offense at it, and now they see it happening.
Hey,
But when they see what
Bettina.
I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically black colleges and universities, where I funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job. Great senator from South Carolina. He came to me with the idea, and it was a great idea. It's one of the most successful economic development acts ever in the country. Opportunity zones, and the biggest beneficiary are blacks, and that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But where do you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet? It's a disaster.
We have 38 seconds left. President Trump, will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever, and we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea today that he said it's true. I passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history.
And we're still not going to talk about East Palestine. We're still not going to talk about the fact that you put all those chemicals in the air. We're still not going to talk about the fact that you guys didn't make sure that the waterways were clean, so it wasn't polluting the Ohio River watershed. We're not going to talk about this.
Any black student is capable in college and doing any white student can do.
This makes me angry.
When a situation where the idea that he is claiming.
I mean, seriously, like biggest environmental disaster. We're not going to talk about it, but we're going to talk about all this other crap.
The Paris Peace Accord, the climate accord. I immediately joined it because if we reheat to 1.5 degrees Celsius and then there's no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
Oof.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing, and India nothing.
Not hearing anything about what we're going to do about on our home soil here.
Because I didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones who was costing us money. Nobody else was paying it.
I can only imagine.
It was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors. I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over
Social
Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
I have such a hard time understanding him.
The idea is that we, in fact, we were the only ones of consequence. We're not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything that we're not able to? The United States can't take us under control. One of the largest polluters in the world. Number one, we're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we continue to make progress. We set up a climate corps where thousands of young people will learn how to deal with them, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to.
Did you hear that? A climate corps, guys.
Elements that cause pollution. But the idea.
Climate corps.
He claims that he has the biggest heart.
Are there going to be like a whole bunch of Greta Thunbergs or whatever?
Pollution and about climate. I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, can then have to pay.
Thank you.
Wow.
By the way,
So every day, millions of Americans struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans, Social Security provides a critical lifeline. President Biden, if nothing is done to Social Security, seniors will see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
Yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now, everybody making under 170.
Does anybody else think that there's actually going to be Social Security when they hit retirement age? Because I know I don't think it's going to be there.
18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, they pay, the millionaires pay 1%. So no one I've not raised the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
So you still have 82 seconds left. Are there any other measures that you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is just
Maybe
is that
stop
one enough?
spending the taxpayers' money.
Keep it solvent, but the biggest thing we'll do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security. He thinks there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanting to cut Social Security and Medicare both times. And and if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that he supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater care coverage today.
It's the Congress and all the legislators had the same
where 400,000
healthcare plans as the average U.S. citizen. I guarantee you, if they were stuck with the same Social Security, the same Medicare, and all that other crap, these systems would be a lot better
and by the way,
and a lot less complicated.
We're in a situation where I talk about education for Black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants, another $8,000. Anybody making under $70,000 a year can be able to get $15,000 towards the tuition. You just don't know what you're talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've dealt with politicians.
He keeps hammering on that tuition forgiveness. You notice that?
Equation for the last 8 years. I've never seen anybody lie like this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He can look you in the face. So many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia, Ukraine. And everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security. They're putting them onto Medicare, Medicaid. They're putting them in our hospitals. They're taking the place of our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden.
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. By the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one who's acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it. Number one. Number two, the idea that we're going to be in a situation where all these
one thing I did notice, you do have the notepads, which I said earlier. I read that in the newspaper.
The reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world.
But I don't see Trump looking down at his notepad, whereas Biden continually looks down.
And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession, and inflation is going to increase and go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted at him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden, thank you so much. Let's turn to the cost of child care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
Just to go back, the general got fired because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're very highly respected, much more so than him. The other thing is, he doesn't fire people. He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put him there. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. He didn't fire. Did you fire anybody? Did you fire anybody that's on the border that's allowed us to have the worst border in the history of the world? Did anybody get fired for allowing 18 million people, many from prisons, many from mental institutions? Did you fire anybody that allowed our country to be destroyed? Joe, our country is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He's the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He came out with a
It does kind of look like that.
Reduced it a little bit.
It really does kind of look like that.
Insignificant. He wants open borders. He wants our country to either be destroyed or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how
I'll agree with you there,
He's the
Amber.
worst in history
Totally
by far.
sidestepped it.
President Biden.
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America.
Oh, no, I get it,
There's
but
nothing
you're
wrong with
right.
the past.
He did because, you
The
know,
finest military in the history of the world. The finest in the history of the world.
yeah,
No one thinks
I
so.
saw that.
No one.
It's
wants
in
to stand
the
with us. No
his
one.
right ear, the one that's
Number two,
facing
the
us right
idea
now.
that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up. Go online. 159, 58, don't know the exact number. Presidential historians. They've had meetings and they voted. Who was the worst president in American history? One to best to worst. They said he was the worst in all of American history. That's a fact. That's not conjecture. He can argue they're wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is doing anything to deal with child care. He did virtually nothing with child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase
And
the
that's where, you know, he's at least trying to answer the question, whereas you're right. Trump earlier, he just kind of sidestepped it. Let's see in his rebuttal if he brings something up.
It was about what would you do to make childcare more affordable if you want to take the amendment.
Just so you understand,
Here we go.
we have Poland, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate me, I'll show you, I will show you. And they rate me one of the best, okay? And if I'm
That
given
Joker
another
smile
4
is
years, I
creepy.
will be the best. I think I'll be the best.
That is just
Nobody's
creepy.
ever
Anybody else creeped out by that?
Economy like us. Nobody ever cut taxes like us. He's the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by 4 times. He wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire. So everybody, including the 2 of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I grow up and I see politicians talking about cutting taxes. Well, we cut taxes, as I said.
Expression was
We
just,
did more
I don't
business.
know.
Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about it. He will increase the taxes on middle class people. I said I never raised the taxes on anybody making less than $400,000. I didn't. This tariff is 10% tariffs. Everything coming in the country, you know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that we're importing. Number two, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised, he somehow helped the middle class. Middle class has been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You have the largest deficit of any president in American history, number one. Number two, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China. We are the lowest trade deficit with China since 2010.
Thank you, President Biden. Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country under this guy. We have the largest deficit with China. He gets paid by China. He's a Manchurian candidate. He gets money from China. So I think he's afraid to deal with them, something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come, but he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China. China's going to own us if you keep allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before.
I like how he said the COVID.
And then we had to get
The
tough.
COVID
And
came
there was the drugs pouring across the border where it started to increase. We got great equipment. We bought the certain dog that's the most incredible thing that you've ever seen, the way they can spot it. We did a lot. And we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers. Then he came along. The numbers, have you seen the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways. But the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border, the worst thing I've ever seen, at numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number of drugs coming across
It's
our border
interesting to see how many
is the largest we've ever had
cuts
by
are
far.
in the film,
President
like
Trump,
as
thank
it
you,
comes
President
across the screen here.
Fentanyl and byproduct fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery to detect fentanyl. These big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together. It's bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of
Yeah, their
all
eyebrows are really.
And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues and said, "Don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically." But he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country in Asia in terms of precursors to fentanyl.
Grow better, that
Mexico
is.
is working with us to make sure we don't have the
Absolutely.
technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those
I
machines.
think.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about
Reloading the
Americans in
popcorn,
throes of
guys.
addiction right now, struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, this does pertaining to it. He ended remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here. We had so many things that we had done. Hard
Yeah, right, Amber?
in Mexico, and I got it all
I don't
from
think we
nothing.
want Kamala.
It's just like when you have a hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say it's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, a Wall Street Journal reporter. I think a good guy. And he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago. But Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases. We paid $6 billion for 5 people. I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
Thank you, President Trump. Dan?
Let's turn to concerns that voters have about each of you. President Biden, you would be 86 at the end of your second term. How do you address concerns about your capability to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Right?
First of all, I spent half my career being being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think just look at the
A
record.
lot less
Look what I've done.
competent, he
I've
said.
turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars of private investment in enterprises. So we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips, we used to have 30% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and to bring home a profit. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States. And they're, guess what? Those fabs, they call them, that to build these chips, those fabs pay over $100,000. You don't need a college degree for them. And there's billions, about $40 billion already being invested and being built right now in the United States, creating significant jobs for Americans from all over the world.
President Biden, you have 40 seconds left. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, I would. The idea that somehow we are this failing country. Never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major country president wouldn't trade places with the United States of America. For all our problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us. All of our allies and those who he calls up from Kim Jong-un, he sends love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. I go through the first 5 questions. He couldn't do it. But I took 2 cognitive tests. I took physical exams every year. And, you know, we're not
I would love
wood
to see
where
the
we may have
cognitive
worse, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way. And I do it. He doesn't do it. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. He challenged me to a golf match. He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as in good a shape as I was 25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter, but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to take a cognitive test. And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor. And then I took another one, a similar one. And one of them said they'd never seen anybody ace them.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. So anyway, I see anyway, just take a look at what he says he is, and take a look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy to have a driving contest with him. I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. And
We're really going to argue about golf handicaps?
I'm happy to play golf to carry on bag. Think you can do it?
That's the biggest one. Is a 6 handicap of all.
I was at 8 handicap, 8. But I had,
I've seen you swing. I know you swing.
Yeah,
Let's not act like children.
President Trump, we're going to
Let's not act like children.
the specific concern that voters have about you. Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins, and you will say right now that political violence in any form is unacceptable?
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of the strongest statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. And I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that went to the Capitol, and in many cases were ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine. She said that loud and clear. But the answer is, if the election is fair, free, and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent because he indicted me because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. The only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again. We're a failing nation right now. We're a seriously failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un and President Xi of China, Kim Jong-un of North Korea, all of these, Putin, they don't respect him. They don't fear him. They have nothing going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
You want a World War III. Let him follow and win and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5. An attack on one is attack on all. Required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done, what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful peace because of the people. Not me, it's because of the American people. They're capable of anything. They step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure that he move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for a follow-up, the question was, will you accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it. Not going to play games with me. He knew that. I got along with him very well, but he knew not to play games. He took nothing from me. And now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you asked me a question before, would you do this with? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia. Because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle until such time. They're running out of people. They're running out of soldiers. They've lost so many people. It's so sad. They've lost so many people, and they've lost those gorgeous cities with the golden domes that are 1,000 years old, all because of him and stupid decisions. Russia would have never attacked.
President Trump, the question was, will you accept the results of the election, regardless of who wins? Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted these, but the fraud and everything else was ridiculous. And if you want, we'll have a news conference on it in a week, or we'll have another one of these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that than I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people
Well, truthfully, I
understand.
think it's a very
Let's see what your numbers are.
roundabout
This election's
answer.
over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not one single court in America said any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none. But you continue to promote this lie about somehow there's all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There's no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt you'll accept it because you're such
I
a
know a
whiner.
lot of people that
And
would
I
beg
gave
to
you
differ.
words again, you accepted anything. You can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential
So he just
debate.
accused something of
Live
snapping in Trump when he lost the last time. That was what Joe said. just before the break. Interesting. So there isn't a whole lot more of this to kind of muddle through. But this is an interesting evening. I'm sure a lot of you guys are kind of taking it in like I am. A little rough to take in stride here. The comments here, guys, you guys are really really insightful. I love a lot of the comments that are coming through. You know, this is definitely, like I said, it's interesting to see because there are times where each of them have kind of avoided the questions that have been asked. They talk in like a circular kind of fashion with where they sort of answer the question but don't really answer it. You know, we've had one or two there. And I kind of think, you know, like I understand Trump's answer, but I kind of feel like that was a bit of a circular answer when it comes to the election. Now, again, do I understand that there are a lot of people out there that are trying to raise money for lawsuits to prove the election fraud? Yes, I do know that. And I do know they have stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of evidence. So knowing that on the side, I mean, again, there's lawsuits that need to be filed. A lot of that boots on the ground, a lot of that work has been done by a lot of people I know. A lot of amazing people working on, like I said, raising those funds for those lawsuits. So when I sit here and I watch this, you know, I have a lot of that stuff in the back of my head. I will tell you, I think it got really childish there when it came to like the golf stuff. Like, what was that? I felt like I was watching two kindergartners fight over a toy. That was kind of bad. This is, again, a little bit rough to watch tonight. I'm really grateful for all of you guys kind of hanging out with me. Usually I'm sitting here and kind of just like in disbelief by myself, or I have my own commentary. As you guys know, I am a little upset because, you know, we're going to talk about climate change. We're going to talk about some of these other things, but nobody has addressed the East Palestine issue. And, you know, that really upsets me because, again, you're talking the biggest environmental disaster and not a peep. Not a peep. So, you know, that's very frustrating, especially for anybody that has been with us here at Soup Mama Official for any length of time. As you know, we've done a lot of work in the East Palestine area since the train derailment. And again, there's studies coming out, 16 different states affected, all the way up into Canada, the Ohio River watershed. Absolutely terrible. All poisoned. They're talking about clean air and clean water and this and that, but nobody's talking about East Palestine. So I don't know. But here we go, guys. It is coming back on. Make sure you have your popcorn for the last section. I only have a little bit left in my bag, so I don't know. But here we go.
It is now time for the candidates to deliver their closing statements as predetermined by a coin toss. We're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
We've made significant progress in the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience, or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair? The fact is that I said nobody that making $400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes in the whole line. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where he now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes in the United States of America. And I did, when, for example, he wants to get away with, get rid of the ability of Medicare for the ability for us to be able to negotiate drug prices with a big pharma company.
I didn't know if he was going to get it out.
What? We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. no more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter what how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government tried not to pay the exorbitant prices. I'm going to make that available to every senior all along, and it's happening now, and everybody in America wants to get rid of that. I'm going to make sure that we have childcare. We're going to significantly increase the credits people have for childcare. We're going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax, that tax. But he doesn't do anything. He doesn't do, all he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all the stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have the Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting all over the place. You talk about Charlottesville. This is 100 times Charlottesville, 1,000 times. The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you. And they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military. We got the largest tax cut in history, the largest regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. All of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like, even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get, when you're terminally ill, now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on.
All right. Well, guys. So what do you think? I'd be curious to see your thoughts in the comments, guys. I think that was quite an interesting debate this evening. A lot of things that didn't get addressed, a couple of things that did. Again, it frustrates me a little. Like I said, they're going to talk about the climate change. They're going to talk about those other things, but we're not going to talk about East Palestine. I noticed that, none of the stuff about the pandemic treaty with the WHO came up either. Did anybody notice that? Anybody notice how that wasn't even a thing? If I were running in opposition or running for president and I were running on a premise of freedom, I would want to talk about that. I would want to talk about, like I said, my plan to stop the federal government from purchasing 30% more of the private land. I would talk about what I would do to safeguard the sovereignty of the citizens of this country. You know what, Ed? That is, I will agree with you there. I do give him credit as well. His eyes were open. His eyes were open. But again, if I were running, like I said, for president on the premise of freedom, I would definitely be talking about some of those things. About how, how are you going to make it great again? Well, you need to assure the people that they're going to have their freedom, that they're going to have their rights to their body, that they're going to have, they touched at, for a good section, they touched on Roe v. Wade, which is important for them to touch on, I guess. But the amazing part is that we're going to talk about, arguing, what rights or whatever, but yet we had mandates and we allowed private institutions to put pressure on people because the federal government, couldn't constitutionally do it. I just find a lot lacking in that debate. I want to talk about 15-minute cities and how we're going to not implement those here in the United States. How I'd like to get rid of the the geofencing. Yeah, exactly, Julie. Operation Warp Speed. That stuff should have always been choices. It should have never been mandated. It should have never been pushed onto people. There wasn't a whole lot of talk about the future. A lot of it was talk about the past tonight. A lot of it was like pointing fingers and pointing blame. And the truth is that at this point, like, I don't even care. I don't really care whose fault it is. I would rather see a solution. I would rather see, solution oriented. I'd rather hear about that. I don't want to hear that negativity going back and forth. I don't know. I think in some ways, how do I put this? I think in some ways they underestimate how many people truly just want the government to leave them alone. I really do. I think they both underestimate that. The truth is that most people, from what I understand and from what I've heard, a lot of people out there, they don't want all of our money going overseas. They want to see it invested back here in our country, in our states, in our communities, in our vets, in our military, in our buildings, in our infrastructure, and without, I would love to see, why are we not talking about, when we go to pass these bills, about eliminating all this pork? Why can't we talk about things like term limits? Why can't we, those are things I think that, if there was really truly, like I said, a basis, a platform for freedom for those that are truly, good night, Ed. Oh man, so again, the premise of running in a truly free platform, about Constitution, about all those things, there's just so much lacking, so many things that haven't been discussed this evening, so many things that haven't even been remotely talked about. Yeah, it's selections, not elections. It's kind of tough. Good night to those of you heading to bed. I know some of you guys, it's getting kind of late. You get up early. I love you guys. Have a wonderful evening and God bless. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there was a lot lacking. I feel like we still have a little bit of, well, quite a bit of time yet, obviously until the general election. But yeah, these bills with all the pork and stuff, like, we need to be passing a bill that says, like, bills need to be able to be read within 24 hours. Or, so many pages. It can't have, all this fluff pork crap in it, like keep it stuck to one topic, one thing at a time. You know what I mean? Keep these bills small, make them easy to understand. Nobody in their right mind should be voting on a bill that comes in on hand carts, like several of them, that you have absolutely zero chance of reading through anytime this millennium. Commentator said this was a bad night for Biden. Ooh, yeah, that does sound like a bit of an ouch. I kind of turned off that part. I figured, we could just kind of hang out and chat. Again, we were just watching TV together tonight, just sort of talking about what was going on the tube. Of course, I did not show any clips of it because there was some talk about CNN taking down anybody that showed restreaming as far as copyright strikes. So we weren't trying to do that, but of course I did want you guys to kind of sit and hang out with me while we watched this evening together. And I do appreciate all of you guys being here and hanging out for the night and jumping in the chats here. And yeah, you guys are right. It is CNN that was asking the questions, and I do understand that. Again, we have, what is it? July, August, September, October. So we got 4 months. 4 months yet, and who knows? Maybe we'll see another debate. Yeah, yeah. Biden, and it's like Biden and Pelosi. Like, I don't know, where they must have been like hangout buddies forever and a day. I don't even know, because like they're both older than Crow and been in politics forever and ever and ever. So I don't know. Oh, good night, Bygone. Have a wonderful evening. Oh, you are very welcome, Grow Better. I'm really glad that you guys could come and hang out. It was a great debate, but you expected better. I actually thought that considering what we've seen in the past from them, I think that they kept it fairly civil. I mean, other than, like I said, other than the golf challenge. So I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Again, been an interesting evening. Like I said, I really am enjoying all of the comments here as you guys post them in. So I don't know. CNN, it was CNN that hosted the debate tonight. So it is, I guess, technically their footage. Just reading some of the comments, guys. Yeah, a lot of politicians get rich while they're in office. A lot of them, they become millionaires if they weren't already. Corporations, special interests, millionaires, billionaires. How do you think they get that way? Good night, Amber. Have a wonderful evening. Again, guys, thank you very much for joining us. Some of you got to see Rio when he peeped his head earlier. He was, of course, sharing some popcorn with us in the middle of the debate. Yeah, they're kind of out of touch. You're right, Bobby. They're out of touch, and that's why they don't necessarily understand the working class people. They don't understand what's important to a lot of people. Again, there's so many people right now that are just struggling to put food on the table, and they just want someone in office that's going to ease that burden. And there are just so many people that are there. They are working their butts off, and with all the inflation and everything, it is so hard for them, to keep up with their bills and make sure that their families are fed. And again, we've had politicians here to tell us here in the States that we should eat cereal, like for dinner, and that's just supposed to be acceptable and perfectly normal and fine. And I find that tough when we have a country of all of this wealth, You know, I find that a tough pill to swallow. One politician. Yeah, so right, and so they make their salaries, they have all of their expenses paid, but then the other part is they can actually vote themselves pay raises too, which is even crazier yet. Yeah, Julie, but they also have a lot of like tips. They know when legislation is going to help them make money and things like that. What's in the cereal? Yeah, right? Oh, man. Again, it is so nice to see you guys all in the chat here today. As we sat and watched a little bit of TV tonight together, sharing in the experience. Oh, gosh. Yeah, well, that's what I said earlier. You know, if they had the same, you know, the same kinds of struggles with insurance and all of that other stuff that the everyday average American has, these politicians would get a lot more things accomplished with a lot less red tape. Yeah, the energy section, the energy sector is really something, you know, and I live here in Pennsylvania. So, you know, when you talk about that, that's jobs. You know, you talk about this green energy stuff. Well, you know, 9 times out of 10, you know, you're looking at things like, you know, they're talking about like these electric vehicles and things with the, well, then let's look at the components of the electric vehicles. Almost everything is made in China. You know, all of your mines that you have, I mean, it's like you're stripping the earth in these mines, and it's like for these rare metals, stuff can't be recycled. It's absolutely not green. You know, it's not green. It does more harm than good. You know, if they wanted to really do green energy, I mean, so look at Henry Ford, or, you know, the first Model T was made out of hemp and it ran on hemp fuel. Hemp can be made into like a hemp concrete, and it's like insect repellent and fireproof. You can make rope, you can make clothes, you can make paper. It's completely renewable. But we're not going to talk about that, right? Because that disrupts big oil. And heaven forbid we do that, because a disruption in big oil is a disruption in big pharma. Because pharmaceuticals are petroleum byproducts. So there's that. You know, so, you know, again, it, you know, the talking about, you know, clean air, clean water, clean soil, you know, all this other stuff, I don't buy it. And that's the thing, like, I am not that naive to this, you know. They can, and it's both of them. They can blow whatever smoke they want to, whatever way they want to. I really, you know, but there are certain things I don't buy, because again, you know, I can see for myself. Yeah, the earpiece, right? There was totally an earpiece. And it was his right ear. So it was this ear. When he turned his head, you could see it. It was like tucked in here. It looked almost like a hearing aid. It was flesh colored. So when they zoomed in, you could see that. And that is a very, very important thing to bring up. Just like somebody earlier said they wanted to see the notepad. Right, Canada RV. That's very, very true. There are a lot of those, and there is no profit in it. And that is exactly it. Just like there are medicines that work really well, but there's no profit in it because the patents run out or whatever else the case may be. And then they don't, you know, oh, well, we have to change the formula a little bit. Yeah. Yeah. He definitely had an earpiece tonight. And like I said, you could totally see it in his right ear. So I'm going to say that in all fairness, I think what they're going to do is kind of do like Canada, where they continually cut the funding for the elderly and just kind of make certain care is no longer available, like certain programs and things, and just turn it over to like a hospice, depending on your age. I think that's really the plan for a lot of that. You know, you have to remember, guys, that, you know, a couple of years before COVID, there were nonprofits, and it's just really interesting. There were nonprofits that were online that were projecting a 70% reduction in population by next year. And that was, like I said, about 2018. You know, so let's look at the things that would contribute to that, especially with the information that we have now. Hey, PGB. Yeah, I think there were a couple times where he like got lost. And then did you also notice too that like he would sort of all of a sudden his eyes, I don't know, like did they zap him full of energy? Did they like, oh no, but he sort of like would get, you know, I don't know, maybe it was just like the confidence or whatever, you know. But again, definitely was wearing an earpiece in the right ear, used his notepad a lot. You could see he was looking down a lot throughout that debate. And you know, so and you could see too in his face, like when the light bulb would go out, you would see he lost his train of thought a lot. He mumbled a lot. He was very, very hard to understand throughout several different parts of the debate. I don't know if it was their audio or if it was actually him. I'm going to assume it was him because Trump was coming through very clear. There was also like a couple of times where, like I said, he did that weird Joker face thing that he does. And it was like, and then the creepier than the full smile is that like half smile where it was only like half of his face that like, you know, the eyebrow went and it was like, what is this look like? Who are you? It was so strange to see. Again, there were parts that he was kind of smirking through that I felt was really disrespectful to the topic at hand. But yeah, I mean, he did a lot better than what I actually thought he would, believe it or not. You know, the thing is that, you know, I guess it's not hard to perform better than him in a debate. Because, you know, obviously he struggles with some of that in front of the camera, that thinking on his feet, you know, putting those things together in a timely fashion on his own. And I love that there were times where you could see he was visibly upset about certain things. Obviously, Trump was trying to trigger him. It did work several times. And you could actually, I mean, you could see his mouth going and in some certain respects, you could hear him yelling kind of in the background of Trump's mic as well when he was getting agitated. Again, it was just, you know, there was a section there where both of them, it was very shameful. Like I said, when it comes to the whole petty, when they were going on about, you know, having a golf competition, like really, like is, you know, like I'm inclined, you know, it reminded me of if you've ever watched the movie Troy, and you have the two kings and they're like, oh, we're going to bring out our best warriors and the best warriors are going to fight. And whichever one wins, that's the army that wins. And the other army like goes home and it's over and done with. Right. That's kind of what it reminded me of. Like when they were standing there, like, I was just like, really? Like, this is what we're going to watch. Yeah. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Wild One. I really do. I posed that question earlier, like, does his wife even like him? You know, because I don't think that it's fair to Joe, you know, to be paraded around like that in that kind of a state. I just think that cognitively, I mean, we've seen the decline. We've seen a lot of these things that he's been doing lately. I mean, I'm not even going to go into all of them, but I mean, we can talk about when, he was with Macron and, Jill had to like lead him away and left Macron there with all the vets. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff. It's really too easy. So, let me just look through the comments here. Yeah, Bobby, that I think is a lot of people's concern. I think that's why they've kind of like left it alone because I think they're too afraid of what comes next. Yeah, I would be curious to know, how many people in the comments here have concerns about the age of either one of these guys. Just out of curiosity. And then, of course, there are several other people that are running for president that we did not see in the debate tonight. I know that some of you guys may know that there are independent and third parties that are running. Some of you may not. A lot of people don't necessarily know who they are. Now, I guess RFK was trying to get on this debate with CNN, but he did not meet CNN's requirements. They made it so that you had to be polling a certain percentage and be on the ballot in so many states in order to debate for this particular debate. Those were part of CNN's qualification rules. Yeah, so again, just reading comments, guys, just trying to see what you guys have to say. Of course, there is always some really interesting stuff in the comments there. But again, not excited about any other person, but that Jill seemed like okay. Yeah, so there is Jill Stein. Of course, she's the Green Party candidate. You have Robert RFK running as independent. I also know that Dr. Shiva's running independent. If any of you guys know anybody else that's running on an independent ticket, please feel free to plug it in the comments there. But there are other people that are running for the office of president, of course, that we're not allowed to debate this evening. So we do want to keep that in mind, guys. And just so everybody is aware, I don't, often when we talk about politics, we talk about Republicans, we talk about Democrats, sometimes you hear about independents, but the truth is that, I kind of want everybody to just, be educated and learn some things along the way. So one of those cool things that most people don't realize is if you do not like the choices on your ballot, you can always write your choice of candidate in on your ballot too. So just something, a side note, something that you want to keep in mind, something that my mom used to, she actually told me that when I was a young kid. She was like, yeah, if you don't like your choices, you could vote for Mickey Mouse if you wanted and just write their name in. And I was like, really? And of course, as I got older, I asked and I was like, is that really a thing? Can you really write in whoever? And they were like, yeah. So just so you guys know, if you absolutely abhor any or all of the candidates that are out there and say you just wanted to vote for yourself, you are more than welcome to do that too at the polls. Could you imagine if every person, just for funsies here, could you imagine if every person out there that had no confidence in any politician whatsoever voted for like themselves or a friend of theirs or something, and the person that became president of the United States only had like, has a couple hundred or a couple thousand votes somewhere? Could you imagine how funny or how crazy that would be? It'd almost be like a vote of no confidence. Well, grow better. The thing is if every single person out there voted their conscience, it could be a really interesting outcome. If people didn't feel like they were hemmed into just voting for one or the other because, oh, my vote's going to be wasted or what, if people stopped believing that we had to participate in the two-party system and that you could really vote your conscience and everybody voted their conscience, it would certainly disrupt things just a little bit. Just a little. I think you'd be really surprised how the United States would vote if they actually did that. I think we would all be quite surprised. Talk show. So two finger typer, yeah. Trump did have a lot of moments where he really hit home. There were a few things that he kind of skirted around and didn't necessarily answer head on. But again, I think all in all, it was a decent debate, especially considering that CNN was hosting it. Oh my gosh, it's like really warm here in my house, guys, but it's been really warm all day. So I thought it was a decent debate. Again, there are a lot of candidates that were not on the debate stage tonight that are still running for the office of the president. So, whether they necessarily stand a chance of winning or not is a totally different story and a totally different discussion for another day. But just so everyone is aware, there are several other candidates out there. So if you didn't hear anything that you liked this evening between these two candidates for the presidential debate, again, there are always other options, whether they're third party or whatever, if that's the route that you choose to go. So you just want to make sure, because again, I believe everybody's vote is between them and the ballot box. And that's truly how it should be. Again, whatever you vote is between you and that ballot box. It's really nobody else's business. But I do always, always, always encourage everybody. Do your research, do your homework, and pick what's best for you, because there is nobody out there that's going to know what you're looking for in a candidate and what your priorities are in your home better than you are. So always make sure you're educating yourself, and not just what these people say, but what they do as well. What's actually in their record? What have they done? What have they accomplished? What have they not accomplished? And all of these things are really important to consider. I know that a lot of times we want to have these prejudices or these preconceived ideas that influence maybe how we look at things or how we feel about them. And that's totally normal, because everybody's perspective is going to be exactly that, your perspective. But I think it's important to try and always keep an open mind. And again, always try and follow the facts, and always try and follow the truth, and always try and get to the heart of things. Because you really do. You want to make sure that you're making the best informed choice that you can. And the key word there is informed. So, yeah, we definitely live in some interesting times right now. And it would, I think it would definitely, if people just voted their conscience instead of a two-party system, I think that we would all be quite surprised by what happens. But again, who knows? We do have a couple months before the election, of course. And this is obviously not the last that we've seen of these two. I'm sure that they're going to have other I'm sure there's going to be at least one more debate. I just, I'm feeling that in my bones. There's at least one more that they're going to do. I don't see how they could kind of get away without doing another one. I would be really curious for the next debate. I would actually, and I would really love to see this. Just, I know that the RNC and the DNC, they're not going to do it, but I really think they should let the third party candidates debate. I really do. I feel like at this point, with everything, the political climate and everything else that's going on in our country, I really feel like we should just give them a fair shake. Why not? 2024, everything else is kind of crazy. Everything else is kind of upside down. Why not give those third party candidates a chance to just stand up on the debate stage? And hey, if they get obliterated, they get obliterated. If they hold their own, awesome. But I think that the American people deserve to see more and deserve to see what all of the options are, because there is way too much censorship. And speaking of that, guys, speaking of censorship, I hope you all checked out the Supreme Court's ruling yesterday. that the government is allowed to encourage social media companies to censor misinformation. So the White House is allowed to censor your misinformation. So if we think back to a couple of years ago about all of those people that got censored for their misinformation that are now being proved right, it does set a scary, scary precedent. I do encourage you guys to read about that because that is quite a hit to the First Amendment. So you guys want to make sure that you check into that and read up on that as well. I'm just rereading. Yeah, there's a lot of really great stuff in these comments here. Again, guys, thank you all for your comments. Yes, right there. I absolutely agree with this comment right here. Grow Better. Again, this is what it's all about, is the discussion, where we can all have those differences of opinions. We can have those different viewpoints. We can talk about the things that we'd like to see in this world to change and otherwise. And I think this is just such a great group of people where we are able to have a lot of these tougher discussions, where we're all respectful to one another and allow the difference of opinions in like I said, a respectful and civil manner. It's just absolutely awesome. So thank you guys. Yeah, I'm in total agreement with letting the other candidates debate. Of course, they have not done that in a long time. I think one of the last third-party candidates to actually debate was Ross Perot. And I think that given how he almost, I would say I was kind of young, but I would say the way he almost won that election scared those big parties. Because again, we have a duopoly here with this two-party system. And again, it's left, right wings of the same bird. So these third-party candidates are really a threat to these big, political action committees and these parties here. I am going to do my best to get to the United Freedom Festival in Ohio. It is tentatively on my schedule. So hopefully we're going to be doing that. Now this weekend, guys, for anybody that was curious, this Saturday I'm going to be at the Holistic Expo. We did cover that last year where we did the Crystal Med Bed and the Ion Foot Detox. That is in Morgantown, Pennsylvania this year. The venue did move from Hamburg to Morgantown. It is an event that's been going on for several years. I absolutely love it. It's being hosted by the Inner Peace and Wellness Center. Absolutely amazing place. But this place is going to be, the expo is going to be chock full of vendors and things to check out. I am going to be live streaming Saturday morning. The doors open at 10 a.m. So we're going to try and get in and show you guys all of those things. And there's all kinds of stuff there. So we're going to try and cover that. There's going to be speakers and lecturers, and it's going to be a great time. So I am very excited about that coming up this weekend. And then, of course, after the expo, I'm going to start making my way to Canada because we have Canada Day on July 1st, guys. And I do plan on spending Canada Day in Ottawa with the Canadians up at Parliament Hill. So we are going to be, we're going to be streaming from there as well. And let me see here. Good night, Bobby. Have a wonderful evening. Let me just see. I'm reading through some of the comments. Should have asked your mom to go. Where, Joss? The Freedom Festival is until the end of July. So the United Freedom Festival is July 26th, 27th, 28th. I actually have my tentative schedule right here. Looking at the dates here. So, hey, Cat Patriot. Oh, the Holistic Expo. Okay. Well, I'll have to bring her next time. But yeah, so I will be going live from the Holistic Expo on Saturday. Then Saturday night, I'm going to be making my way, like I said, to Canada for Canada Day in Ottawa on the 1st. Now, July 4th, guys, we're going to be walking from the Canadian side of Niagara Falls across the Rainbow Bridge right there at Niagara into Niagara Falls, USA, where we plan on celebrating the 4th of July. I was checking stuff out. There is a whole downtown celebration with all kinds of food trucks, things like that. It does begin at noon on the 4th of July in Niagara Falls, New York, and fireworks are at 10 p.m. Again, we're going to be walking the bridge from Canada to the United States to celebrate the 4th of July. So again, if you guys want to come out and hang out with me, please get a hold of me on Messenger or shoot me an email. I would love to see you guys there up in the Niagara area, whether it's in Canada, if you want to walk with us, or over in Niagara on the US side here, just to celebrate and hang out at the falls. That's going to be absolutely amazing. And then again, we have the United Freedom Festival. That's July 26th, 27th, 28th. That is in Ohio. So that is tentatively on the schedule. I'm definitely going to try and get there. Just not 100% sure yet if that's going to be completely possible, but we are definitely trying to get there. It is on the schedule. We also have September 13th through the 15th, guys. We have the American Freedom Rally. That's in Dougspur, Virginia. So anybody that's been with me from the beginning, you may remember the very first year that we started all of this. We had that rally in Virginia where I got stuck for a week because the hurricane washed out the bridge. Well, that is this rally in September. Again, that's the 13th, 14th, and 15th in Dougspur at the Kanawha Valley Arena. So if you want to check that out, I've been there the last 2 years. Of course, we have previous footage on the Soup Mama official page on YouTube. So you can always check that out if you want to see what happened the last couple of years. Again, that's going to be coming up in September. Also in September on the 28th, guys, Take Our Border Back, that group that we went down with to the Texas border in February, where we acquired our gorgeous Rio puppy. They are doing a United States-Canadian border rally, and that is going to be in Youngstown, New York. Guys, I know a lot of the people that are organizing that event behind the scenes. They are doing an amazing job starting to put that together from both sides of the border. Again, it's going to be another day, United States and Canada standing together, standing in unity. That event, again, September 28th, that's going to be in Youngstown, New York. So all of these things, there's flyers on the Soup Mama official page, guys. They're all pinned to the top. I did add a bunch of new flyers. There's a ton of stuff going on this weekend. So make sure you're checking them out, because as I get the flyers, I just keep adding them to those pinned posts. So there's always something new getting added. You never know. Sometimes it's just 1 or 2 events, and sometimes I find like 10 or 15, but I always update on those pinned posts, and you can get to every single post from post 1 or any of the other ones. It doesn't matter. We are up to post number 4 right now for the month. So just so you guys are aware, if you're looking for events or the newest flyers that you haven't seen yet, we are on post number 4. And then the very last event that I do have tentatively penciled in already is the Convoy of Honor. That's in November, guys. That's, I believe, the 8th to the 11th this year. And again, that is Veterans Week out in Branson. So that is also on the calendar. So we have a busy couple of months coming up. Busy, busy, busy. Lots of events going on. Again, this Saturday, I'm going to be streaming from the Holistic Expo and then making my way up to Canada for Canada Day. And then, of course, walking here to the US on the 4th to celebrate 4th of July in Niagara Falls. So those are the things that are coming up immediately. I would absolutely love for you guys to come celebrate with us. Again, we're going to have just an amazing, amazing time. So let's see. Yep, the Gilead, Ohio Fairgrounds. Yep. Canada, you feel like Joe Biden slurring your words. Yes, PGB, I did love the pictures you sent me. I did get one of them out online. I'm still working on getting pictures out from the Trump rally. I had so many in my phone from Philadelphia that I'm still working on going through them all. But I do have a couple more that I'm going to be putting out hopefully tomorrow. Hopefully. I ran out of time today with some of the stuff getting ready for the debate tonight. Of course, I wanted to watch it, and it was a little bit impromptu to share with you guys and watch, but I thought it'd be really fun. So maybe you need to talk to me about software problems. Oh gosh, no, I'm the last one you want to talk to about technology. But anyway, guys, what an evening. What an interesting evening. Again, thank you for joining me for tonight's TV watching experience. I hope you guys had fun. I hope you guys learned something. I know it was definitely eye-opening for me a little bit here and there. Hala, the holistic event is in Morgantown, Pennsylvania. So it's going to be at the Morgantown Event Center. And that's Morgantown, Pennsylvania. And the Holistic Expo is Saturday and Sunday. It starts both days at 10 a.m. And again, I'm going to be there Saturday morning. I'll be live streaming, but they always have different vendors every year. There's now some people keep coming back, but there's always somebody new. There's always something different to try. So I'm really curious to see who's there this time. It's always fantastic. So anyway, guys, it has been a super long day for me. Thank you again for joining me. Don't forget to mark your calendars for some of those upcoming events, or, make sure you have your notification bell on for when I go live. This Saturday from the Holistic Expo, Morgantown, Pennsylvania. We'll probably do some of the drive to Canada as well, and some of the other shenanigans while we're there. But again, guys, check those flyers that are pinned to the Soup Mama official page on Facebook. You don't want to miss any of those amazing events, and they are for all over the globe. And until I see you guys again, have a fantastic evening. God bless. I love you guys, and we will chat again soon. Take care, guys.